Angela, I want to talk to you about the last week or the last 10 days for Harry and Meghan, because this feels pretty disastrous. I mean, they were actually heckled leaving the Pat Tillman Award receipt at the ESPYs. So have a look at this, and then I'll get you to react off the back.
Pass this microphone down to her. Go.
Now, Angela, someone is actually shouting in the audience there, "Go back to Britain." And all of the choreography around the awards were odd. Venus Williams seemed to be shooting her the evil eye. What did you make of what was going on and how they could have messed this up so badly?
Well, I think it was very foolish of them because in America, which they should know by now, the Pat Timmons was a real hero. The company, all the people felt very, very strongly that he was a wonderful man and he was a hero.
All right, this latest claim about Prince Harry is generating serious discussion online. Royal commentator Angela Levin has claimed Harry appeared to be in a terrible state during the ESPYs, with suggestions that the Duke was emotionally overwhelmed behind the scenes. Now, because Harry has been under constant public pressure for years, comments like these instantly spark speculation about his mental and emotional well-being. But how much of this is genuine concern? And how much is interpretation amplified by media commentary? The ESPYs appearance already attracted huge attention before these comments even surfaced. Whenever Harry appears publicly now, people analyze everything. And because he remains one of the most talked about former royals in the world, every appearance quickly turns into a wider conversation about his life after leaving the monarchy.
He was a brilliant footballer, and then he left that and fought after 9/11, and unfortunately died in 2004. But his mother, obviously heartbroken, was furious that she wasn't asked who could get the present that came with the thanking him for being such an amazing man. And she didn't want Harry to have it because she said he wasn't right, he'd been awful to his family, and he couldn't represent his son. And although he'd worked for Invictus Games, he hadn't done the whole thing, and he just didn't deserve it. But they continued. And it was very, very uncomfortable all the time. I mean, Meghan hung on to him, hold his hand and his arm so he could barely move. And when he went up to get the award, she clung to his hand. And he was walking and she was hanging on to it. And in the end, he obviously pushed it away and walked up. Now, what was that about? Was that because she wanted to go up and hold the award as well? I mean, she likes awards, nothing to do with that, but you don't take other people's which you don't deserve. And she shouldn't be always in the photograph. It's just shocking. But apparently, Harry was in a terrible state about it. Backstage, he was absolutely distraught about what he should do and what he shouldn't do. And the piece that he read was very Meghan-like, actually. I mean, I went to loads and loads of with him where he made speeches, and they were very open and friendly. But this was sort of loads of boring words that you didn't.
Yeah, he hadn't written that. He hadn't written that. Absolutely not. And I thought, Angela, what was really interesting is that he looked terrified when he was walking up. So clearly what Meghan had hoped is that Harry was going to take her arm and say, "Come up with me, come up with me." But he didn't. He didn't actually want her up there on the stage. And the reason he was terrified, and I think he probably knows that if Meghan was on stage, there was more chance of this happening, is he was terrified of being booed because he was heckled on the way out. And I mean, in the end, people were respectful during the speech, but I don't think he got a particularly loud, positive reaction.
No, but it's very rude because as soon as that particular event had happened, they were leaving. I think if you go to one of these organizations, which is to thank people for doing wonderful things, you don't walk out in the middle. That's incredibly rude, isn't it? You just wait, even if it's boring for you. You don't sort of walk out. It's very bad manners. And they rushed out just after Harry had said his speech. And I think that it was just a disaster. They need to know now where they stand, what they do, that they can't take other people's success and pretend it's their own. They just can't do that. They need to build their own life, but they don't seem able to. They hanging on to their royal details and actually not living their own lives, which seems very strange. Very strange. If they're together and they're even the slightest bit happy, let them do what they want, not try and spoil things for other people. When he talked about Pat's mother, obviously Harry would think of his own mother, but then he should know. He said, I respect you, I understand you, but then he did nothing. Well, what does that mean? You know, if he understood the relationship between a mother and a son, which is quite understandable, then you don't actually then make it very unpleasant for her. You make it as easy as you can. You don't take it away from her, make her even more unhappy that you've got the award.
Exactly. Mary Tillman had said she didn't want you to accept this award. If you had any respect for that woman, you would not have accepted it. You would have said, I've heard what she's said. She is Pat Tillman's mother. I'm going to respect her. He did not do that. Instead, what he tried to do was curry sympathy by talking about her during the speech, which I just thought was completely grim. And it shows how tone deaf he is to anyone else's feelings. He only seems to care about his own feelings.
Now, according to Angela Levin, Harry appeared emotionally strained during the event. She described him as being in a difficult emotional state, which immediately fueled online speculation that the pressure surrounding his public life may be catching up with him. And honestly, whether people support Harry or criticize him, it's hard to deny his life has changed dramatically over the past several years. He left royal duties, moved countries, faced non-stop media attention, released deeply personal interviews and memoirs, and became one of the most polarizing public figures in the world. That's an enormous amount of pressure for anyone. Supporters of Harry argue that public scrutiny has been relentless and emotionally exhausting. Critics, meanwhile, often argue that Harry contributed to the media storm himself by repeatedly speaking publicly about royal tensions and personal struggles.
And we've seen that time and again, haven't we, with his own family too?
Yes, but this is extraordinary because when I was with him for 15 months, he understood everybody's feelings. He was brilliant with people who'd been had been injured, and he was marvelous with them, and he could get them round. And several of them, after he walked to speak to someone else, would say to me, he's given me the feeling that I should live. Nobody else has been able to. I've lived in darkened rooms for years now, but he's actually told me there is a life, and he's helped me feel like that. He's been talking to him for only 5 minutes, so he has got that feeling. It's his mother's way of being kind and nice and helpful to other people. But I think with Meghan, he just is a very, very different person, and that he becomes determined and unkind.
Exactly. And what's so interesting at the moment, Angela, is that this has now been widely considered Harry and Meghan's flop era. It's like everything they touch turns to the opposite of gold. And I just wonder how you think they're going to turn this around, because the Nigerian tour was a disaster.
Yes.
This has now been a disaster. I mean, is there a way for them to claim back the narrative?
Well, I think it's jolly difficult, isn't it? I think they have to sit down and talk it through and not keep on going on and on and on about the things they don't like of what have happened and trying to win. I think that's a problem. I think they should be very quiet and be together and not try and grab everything. that isn't theirs. It's terrible. And the other thing that I think people don't like is the fact that nobody sees their children. It's very difficult to understand this allegedly happy couple who just hide their children. It's very difficult for the children because they don't have a family on their mother's side apart from their grandmother, and they don't see anybody on their father's side. And I think that's very hard for children not to know that they're a big family and they have lots of people who love them. I find that very peculiar. And I think they should spend a lot of time with their children, take them out, take them round, and actually be ordinary people, because they're no longer royals and they could have a lovely life if they looked after their manners.
Well, it's interesting, actually, because we've had lots of questions coming in for you today, Angela, and there's a question on a similar theme there from Jane Knight, who says, I really feel for Charles not seeing Archie and Lilibet except over video. Are they being held as a form of ransom or blackmail, do you think? If so, leverage for what?
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, I think the blackmail might be a very exaggerated word, but I also feel they have said, unless they get this 24/7 police protection, they will not bring their children over. So that is...
and they're not going to get that. They're not going to get that.
They're not going to get that. And I think that's the wrong way to behave. They have occasionally seen them via Zoom, but little children like that, 2 and 4, they're not going to be interested in conversations. It's just like 2 or 3 words. And I think, the king would love to see them actually, where he could play with them and take them around the gardens and live in the country. But I think they're holding that back. That's my impression, because they won't do that unless they get exactly what they want from the royals.
So even emotional moments become controversial. Supporters see vulnerability, critics see instability, and commentators continue debating every appearance endlessly. That divide now shapes almost every story involving Harry. Honestly, this story reflects something bigger happening in celebrity culture overall. Public figures are constantly expected to appear strong, polished, and emotionally controlled, even under enormous pressure. But when someone looks emotional or overwhelmed, the internet immediately turns it into spectacle. And with Harry, whose personal struggles have already been public for years, people naturally read deeper meaning into every visible emotion. Sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly. At the end of the day, only Harry himself truly knows how he's feeling behind the scenes. Angela Levin believes he appeared emotionally overwhelmed at the ESPYs. Others think the internet is once again exaggerating ordinary human emotion into dramatic headlines. But one thing is certain. Anything involving Prince Harry instantly becomes a global conversation about pressure, fame, and public scrutiny. What do you think? Did Harry genuinely seem overwhelmed, or are people reading far too much into one public appearance? Drop your thoughts in the comments and I'll see you in the next video.